Hi, welcome to #math. We're going to learn about polynomial functions, how they look like, their definition, and the vocabulary we'll be using to work with them. Polynomials look like this. You see, p of x has a number, x to some power, then another piece with a number, x to some power, another piece. Here the power of x can be thought of x to the 0th power, because that's just 1 and we don't write it. F of x looks exactly the same. The number in front of the power could be a rational number, like a fraction. It could even be a radical number in front of the power. So that's the number that is in front of the power of x. What is not allowed for a polynomial is to have x inside a square root, for example. All polynomials have powers that are non-negative integers, so positive integers or 0. So let's see why g of x is not a polynomial. G of x is 2x to the 1/2 power plus 1, and the powers of x in polynomials have to be positive integers or 0, and 1/2 is not. So this is not a polynomial. H of x is not a polynomial because the power of x here is negative. F of x is not a polynomial because we can write it again like 5x to the 4th power plus x to the -1, and that power is not positive. Actually, any function that has a denominator and the variable in the denominator is not going to be a polynomial. Those are going to be rational functions. G of x again is not a polynomial because the power of x here is a rational number. It's not an integer. We write a polynomial in general like this. Let's see how this looks like in an example. Suppose p of x equals 3x squared plus 2x minus 1. The n in the formula is the power of x here. So an equals a2, n is 2. And well, that is just the number that appears in front of x to the power of 2, which is 3. This piece here corresponds to this one. You see, x is to the power of 1 and x is to the power of 1. We don't write it, but we know there's a 1 there. And then a1, which is for n equals to 1, is going to be the number in front, which is 2. And then the last term, we have x to the 0th power there, only that we don't write it because that is just a 1. And 1 times a0 is a0, and we don't write it. Okay, so then a0 is just -1, the last number there. The other fact about polynomials is that we write them in descending order of the powers of x. Like if we have p of x equals 3x cubed plus 2x plus x squared, that would not be in descending order. So we rewrite it as 3x cubed plus x squared plus 2x. Now we're going to talk about the degree and leading term of a polynomial. So here's the general form of a polynomial. The highest power of x in the polynomial is called the degree. So if an is not 0, then the degree of this general polynomial is going to be n. The coefficients are the numbers that are in front of the powers of x. So this is a coefficient, this is another coefficient, this is another coefficient. So the coefficients are the AIs. Now try to answer those questions before I do it. Pause the video if you need it. Okay, which is the degree of the polynomial p of x? What's the highest power? Obviously that 2 there, so the degree is 2. Which is the coefficient of x squared? Go to x squared and look at the number in front. So the coefficient is 3. Which is the coefficient of x? Again, go to x, look at the number in front, which is 2. And remember, the coefficient of x to the 0th power is right here. Remember, this is a 1. The coefficient of x to the 0th power is a0, which is -1. Answer the questions of f of x. Pause the video. The highest power of x in this polynomial is here, the 5. So the degree of the polynomial is 5. The coefficient of x to the 4, go to x to the 4th. If you don't see a number in front, it's because it's a 1. So the coefficient of x to the 4 is -1. Now go to the 0th power of x, which is here. So the coefficient of x to the 0th power is 7. And now what happened to x cubed? What do you think happened? What is the coefficient of x cubed? It looks like it's missing. So what do you think it is? If you don't see it there, it's because the coefficient is 0. So when you multiply 0 times x cubed, is 0, so we don't write it. So the coefficient of x cubed is 0. Polynomials of degree 0, 1, and 2 are familiar functions for us. Let's see. A polynomial of degree 0, it's going to be a polynomial that looks like p of x equals a0. You see? It's degree 0. So remember, x is to the 0th there. So a polynomial of degree 0 is a0, meaning that for any value of x, the function's value is a0. So it is a constant function. Pause the video and try to think which known function is a polynomial of degree 1. If we have degree 1, it's because p of x equals a1x plus a0. Do you see this as a familiar function for us? Can you think what this is? What if I write m instead of a1? That's just a number, so I can name it m. I keep my x, of course. And then I name p here instead of a0 because it's a number. And p of x is just the y value. Do you recognize it now? Of course. That's a line or a linear function. Pause the video and think what a polynomial of degree 2 is. If the degree is 2, p of x is going to be a2x squared plus a1x plus a0. And what is that? Yep, that is just a quadratic function, which is nothing but a parabola. A polynomial of degree 3 is called a cubic. Polynomial of degree 4 is called a quartic, and so on and so forth. Okay, now we talk about terms of polynomials. Each piece you see here is a term. Whatever is separated by a positive or a negative sign. The term with the highest power is called the leading term. In this case, it's going to be this one here, provided that an is not 0. We'll see later why it's called leading term. And the constant term is the last one here. So these are two terms that are really important for our polynomials, the leading term and the constant term. It's called constant because you don't see a power of x here. It's just a 0 power, so it's just 1. So well, answer the questions here, which is really easy. What's the leading term of p of x? I know you already know, that's 3x squared. The constant term, the last one, -1. Okay, we see that q is not written in descending order, so we order it. That's 2x cubed plus x squared minus 3x minus 3. The highest power is 3, and the leading term is 2x cubed. The constant term is the last one there, which is just -3. Easy. So we can count the number of terms in any polynomial. P of x has 3 terms, f of x has 5 terms, so 3 and 5 terms. According to the number of terms, polynomials have names. A monomial is just a polynomial that has 1 term, so they look like maybe p of x equals 5 or f of x equals 3x squared or even f of x equals -x. All of those are monomials. Binomials are 2 terms. They look like, I don't know, f of x equals x plus 1 or f of x equal 3x minus 2 or f of x equals x cubed minus x squared. Those are all binomials. Trinomials, you can imagine. F of x looks like something like x squared plus 2x minus 1 or minus x cubed plus 2x minus x. 3 terms. Polynomials with more than 3 terms do not have specific names. Thank you.